The next morning, Nicky was gone somewhere when Dave awoke. His first job wasn't until 11, so he had plenty of time to think and worry about making the dreaded call. After breakfast, he decided to drive by the Mackey house. He didn't have a clear reason for doing so. It wasn't as if he'd drive by and see Theodore miraculously healed and the family having a nice picnic on the front lawn, thus making this whole issue disappear for him. He drove past the house slowly, wishing he could draw something from it. Something he could take away and make him feel better about what he needed to do. Maybe if he saw Ron actually striking the child, that would cement it for him. After all, what did he really know? They'd said Theodore fell down and hit his head, and then he fell down again and hurt his fingers. What if he did? How would Dave and Nicky feel if Jake hurt himself in a fall, and someone accused them of abuse? He didn't actually know anything, did he? Suspicion was all he had. That, and a weird telepathic certainty. As he drove back home, he passed a Homeland Security billboard that read, "If you see something, say something." Okay, what if he just called and said that he'd seen something and didn't know for sure what it meant? That would put the problem into the hands of the proper people to determine if there was anything to be concerned about. And if he was ever confronted by Ron, he could tell him that he was just concerned and wanted to be sure. Was that a bad thing? What kind of person would he be if he wasn't concerned for the well-being of a child? With that decided, Dave looked up the number online and called Child and Family Services. He punched in the number, put his cell phone on speaker, then set the phone down on the counter and mindlessly looked in the kitchen cabinets as he waited for his call to be answered. He was repeatedly informed that his call was important and to please stand by, as all staff were currently busy with other callers. Finally, Dave peeled open a banana, more from boredom than actual hunger, and just when he'd taken a large bite, the jazz music stopped and a woman spoke. "Thank you for calling Child and Family Services. My name is Yvonne. How may I assist you?" Dave waved his hand back and forth in the air in front of his phone, while trying to quickly chew the mouthful of banana. "Hello? Is there anyone on the line?" Dave mumbled, "Just a second," with his mouth full. "Is this an emergency? Make a sound if you need me to call the police." Dave finally swallowed and said, "I'm sorry. I was eating while I was on hold. I'm here." "Oh, well, that's good. I apologize for the delay. How may I assist you?" Dave found himself not mentally prepared for what to say, so he just blurted out the first thing that came to him. "This may be nothing, but I was at a house where there was a child with a black eye and a fat lip, and the parents said he'd fallen. The next day I went back, and this time the child's hands were hurt, and they said he'd fallen again. So, I was just wondering if there was possibly something more to it than what they were saying." Yvonne told Dave that it was good of him to call, and that you could never be too careful, especially where a child was concerned. She got all of the pertinent information from him to make a full report, and assured him that it would be looked into, and that his identity would not be revealed. And that was it. He'd done it. It was much easier than he had anticipated. He almost felt foolish for worrying about it so much. It was like calling the DMV and updating his registration, or something that could actually be done over the phone and was no big deal. Dave felt so much better afterwards that he barely even gave it any thought. Nicky was pleased with him for having done his part to help a poor little battered child, and told him how great he was. She was extra attentive that night when they went to bed. Then the next day she was being very flirtatious with him via text while he was on a job. Afterwards, as he was walking to his truck, she called him. "Dave, where are you?" Nicky sounded desperate and like she was crying. "I'm just leaving the Davenports. Are you okay?" "Yes, I'm okay and Jake's okay, but our front window is not. Someone threw a boulder through it with a note on it." "Oh my God, are you sure you and Jake are okay?" "We're fine, just a bit rattled, and we're scared. Dave, the note said, 'Snitches get stitches.' Do you think it was those people?" "Make sure the doors are locked," and Dave hadn't noticed the truck pulling up as he stood outside the door of his car. He felt a hand wrap around his throat and pull him backwards against the truck door. His head was pulled partly into the cab and yanked downward, causing his back to arch and forcing him up onto his toes. He found himself looking upside down at Ron's angry red face. "You need to learn to mind your own goddamn business." Dave couldn't breathe with his head pulled so far backwards, and to make it worse, one big meaty hand was still squeezing his throat. His heart pounded, and his mind panicked. His only hope in this vulnerable position was if someone came to his aid, but he was between two vehicles, so anyone passing wouldn't even be likely to see what was happening. He couldn't count on a passerby intervening. He did the only thing he could do. He reached back with both hands to pry Ron's hands off his neck. Ron took the phone out of Dave's right hand and slammed it down on his forehead repeatedly until the phone broke and blood ran from Dave's head. Then he threw it out the passenger window and shoved Dave away from his truck. "Next time it'll be your woman and your child. You hear me?" He stepped on the gas and burned rubber as he pulled away. Dave stood there, choking and holding onto his throat. Blood dripped into his eyes, mixed with tears, and ran down his face. He lifted his shirt and blotted his eyes as he coughed and tried to keep from gagging. Now that he could see again, he could start to think also. His first thought was of his phone. Ron had thrown it. He looked down the street and saw it 30 or so feet away. He walked toward it on trembling legs, feeling completely disoriented. He couldn't believe what had just happened to him in the middle of a suburban street on a sunny day. Everything around him looked normal as ever. Apparently, no one had seen the attack. At least not that he could tell. No one was coming out to ask if he was okay or if he needed help. He reached his phone and bent to pick it up. When he bent, he lost his balance and fell to the street. He sat there, staring at his phone for a minute, still in some degree of shock. He saw that the screen was cracked and smeared with blood, but the display was still lit. He saw Nikki's face on the lock screen. Nikki! Suddenly he felt the urgent need to get home and make sure his wife and son were safe. He grabbed the phone and got up. He dragged his finger across the bloody glass to reveal the functional screen beneath the photo of Nikki and tapped the handset icon. He touched the number 9 and then 1 as he walked toward his car, and then held his finger above the 1 and stopped himself from pressing it a second time. He looked up to make sure it was safe to cross the street, then did so, and got inside his car. He put the phone down on the center console and used his shirt again to wipe more blood from his face and forehead. Being inside his car caused a feeling of normality to wash over him. A familiar place, a bit of security. It was like an extension of home. The small measure of relief made him feel suddenly exhausted, but he needed to think and act. He looked at his phone. He had dialed 911. He didn't know if he should complete the call and send police to his house, or if he should just race there himself. When Ron said next time, surely he didn't just mean the next time Dave called CFS. He had to have meant the next time Dave called anyone about Ron, including the police. Not wanting to chance it or take any more time to think about it at the moment, he reached into his pocket for his keys, started his car, and drove faster than every posted speed limit all the way home. The front window of his house was shattered, with a large, jagged section missing. What if Jake had been playing in front of it when the boulder came through? What if Nikki had been cleaning it or dusting the bookshelf? Chills went through Dave's body. The thought of anything happening to either of them was more than he could handle. He parked and rushed inside. He locked the door behind him and turned around. The front room was empty. Glass was scattered over the polished wood floor. "Nikki!" he called out, his heart already thumping in fear that he was too late. The beast had come after his family. "We're in Jake's room," she replied. Dave sighed in relief. Thank God. He went down the hall to Jake's room and was so happy to see them both sitting on the floor as though nothing bad had happened at all that day. Nikki screamed. Jake cried out and backpedaled away from his father. "Honey, what's the matter?" "You're okay. Everything's okay." "Oh my God, Dave, what happened to you?" He wondered for a second how she knew. Then he remembered. The blood. He looked down at his shirt. It was covered in blood. We need to get you to a hospital. I'll call Joy, or 911. I'll call 911. Dave turned around to spare them further exposure to the bloody mess that he was. Just call Joy so she can watch Jake. Then you can help me. I don't need an ambulance, okay? Nikki wasn't sure about that, but whether he needed medical attention or not, they'd need Dave's younger sister to watch Jake for a while. In fact, she thought, he should stay at her house tonight. Dave went into the bathroom and almost felt like screaming himself when he saw his reflection. He understood now why his wife and son freaked out. He looked like he'd been in a fatal car wreck and he was the fatality. But since he was standing in his bathroom, he would be a zombie if he'd been killed earlier. In his case, it had been a human wreck he'd been in. 2 humans had collided in the street. Dave? Are you okay? Nikki broke the trance he'd fallen into with his strange train of thought. I think it's worse than it looks. Joy says she'll be over right away. Good. That's good. He was still staring at his macabre reflection. It was hard for him to believe that he was looking at himself. Had it been a photograph he was looking at, he wouldn't have recognized himself. Dave, look at me. I think you're in shock. He turned and looked at his wife. She was so beautiful. He wanted to marry her. They could have a little boy. I love you, he said. You know I love you too, but I'm worried about you. You look terrible. We need to get you to the hospital. I think I'm okay. I just need to change out of this bloody shirt. He repeated in an English accent. This bloody shirt. Won't you have a look at it? It's all bloody, innit? He started laughing. Nikki didn't know what to do. Dave was injured and bleeding and acting strange. Jake was alone in his room. The front window was broken, which meant whoever had hurt Dave could easily get inside their house. Dave clearly needed her right now, but so did Jake, and she didn't want them in the same room since Jake was still traumatized by the sight of his father. Okay, Nikki, get it together. You can handle this. Dave, honey, can you go to our bathroom and wait for me? Sure thing, love. I could go and walk about, he said, now using an Australian accent. Fair dinkum. Nikki hoped he was just screwing around and demonstrating that he was in good shape by being goofy like usual. But he wasn't laughing or smiling, so she didn't know if something was wrong with his brain. That was a definite possibility as far as she could tell with the big knot on his forehead and the blood everywhere. Dave dutifully walked out of the main bathroom and toward the master bedroom, presumably to the bathroom there. Nikki sat with Jake and assured him that everything was okay. Daddy just bumped his head and it looked a lot worse than it really was. Aunt Joy is going to take you out for ice cream while I clean up Daddy's face and put a Band-Aid on his cut. Jake wasn't interested in ice cream. He clung to his mother and tried not to cry, afraid that his dad was hurt as badly as he appeared to be. In the hospital waiting room, Nikki ended her second call with Joy, having been assured once again that she and Jake were okay. Of course they were. They were at Joy's house, and there was no reason to suspect that Ron knew where they lived, or that he'd even do anything if he did. Which he didn't. Nikki could not calm her racing mind. The doctor had assured her that Dave was going to be okay, but that didn't make her feel any better about the fact that he'd been assaulted to begin with. Things like this just didn't happen in her life. Dave had done nothing wrong. He was a good person concerned about a child. She had to talk to the police. No, Dave had to talk to the police. It wouldn't do any good for her to report the assault. But she could report the broken window and the rock with a note on it. For that, she'd have to wait until they got back home. Oh God, she thought. The word home didn't mean what it had before. It was no longer their sanctuary, the safe place they returned to after each day of dealing with other people and things in life. Would they even be safe living there anymore? They had to talk to the police. This was totally crazy. She paced and worried and tried to figure out what they needed to do, and finally she saw Dave walking toward her. His forehead was bandaged, and he was smiling. Was he on pain medication or still in shock? 13 stitches. Can you believe it? He asked, still smiling. She ran toward him and put her arms around him. Dave, this is not something to be smiling about. We have to talk to the police, and we need to figure out what to do. I was thinking we should stay in a hotel for a few days." "Over a broken window? I'll just call someone out to have it repaired. No need to get drastic." "It's not just about the window. Look where we are, Dave. You were assaulted. You could have been killed today, and that man knows where we live. He's already been to our house. I don't feel safe there, and you shouldn't either." "Nikki, I think we'll be fine. I angered him by calling child services, and now he's gotten his revenge. He has no reason to do anything else to us." "You don't know that. Let's see what the police advise." "I don't want to talk to the police. It'll just make him even more determined." "Or maybe it won't," she countered. "Once the police are involved, he'd be crazy to do anything else. Dave, we have to call the police." Dave considered whether to tell Nikki about Ron's threat regarding next time he told anyone anything. He didn't want to scare her, but she was insistent about calling the police, the one thing that might really provoke Ron into more violent action. "Let's get the window taken care of and take things one step at a time. Our house isn't secure, so let's deal with that first, okay?" Nikki reluctantly agreed, but she was determined that they would call the police no matter what. You didn't just let people commit violent crimes and not call the police. Wasn't that obvious? "What did the doctor say?" she asked as they made their way to the parking lot. "Keep it clean." "That's it? Don't bang on it?" Nikki shook her head. She appreciated Dave's sense of humor, but this wasn't the time for it. "I'll drive," she said as they walked up to their SUV. "Good. The painkiller has me feeling pretty loopy," Dave replied, and walked around to the other side. They were silent for a moment as Nikki navigated her way out of the parking lot and onto the freeway a few blocks away. "Dave, I'm really worried and I need you to be serious for a minute, okay?" "Okay. Sorry, I guess I've just been avoiding thinking about it. I wish I had never gone to that house." "But you did, and now we have a problem, so we need to talk about what we're going to do. If you won't tell the police this cretin assaulted you, I'm at least going to tell them he threw a boulder through our window. Just think if Jake had been in the front room. He could have been killed, Dave. Do you realize that?" "Yes, and you're right. We need to fight fire with fire. We'll call the police when we get home. Speaking of calling, I need a new phone."